Retirement guardrails. Do you have them as part of your retirement plan? If not, you should. In this video, we're going to talk about what retirement guardrails are, why you should add them to your retirement plan. We're going to go through two examples of how to add retirement guardrails to a retirement plan. And at the end of the video, we're also going to cover the 4 factors that can impact the retirement guardrails that you're creating. Now, before we talk about what retirement guardrails are, let's go through a quick analogy to explain why they're so important. So imagine you're driving down a coastal highway, the sun's shining, the ocean looks beautiful, you're in a convertible, you're headed to your favorite spot for dinner. But if you look on your left, you've got these jagged rocks and boulders that have fallen off the cliff. If you look to your right, you've got a sheer drop down to the ocean below. And naturally, you're a bit terrified. There's nothing on either side. There's no guardrails preventing you from either hitting those rocks or going straight into the ocean below. Naturally, you're probably driving a little bit slower. You're being a little bit more cautious. You probably have a tight grip on the steering wheel. You're probably laser focused on the road in front of you. You're not looking around at all. And you might even choose to take a longer route. You might even choose to avoid this road altogether just because of the risk of not having any safety barriers on either side. Now imagine the same roadway, same conditions, same weather, but now there's guardrails on either side. So you've got guardrails on the left protecting you from running into those jagged rocks and boulders, and you've got a guardrail on the right that's preventing you from taking a steep dive into the ocean below. Nothing's really changed. It's the same car, you're driving, same weather conditions, but now all of a sudden you're feeling much more comfortable. You're probably driving a little bit faster. You're enjoying the road, the curves, the tops down on the convertible. You're enjoying the sun. You're watching and looking at the ocean and the sights around you, and you're not so focused on the next 5, 10, 15 meters in front of you. This is the benefit of having guardrails. The guardrails are there just to provide safety. 99% of the time, you're not going to hit those guardrails, but just the fact that they are there has made you less anxious. They've made you feel safer. They've allowed you to enjoy that drive. They've allowed you to, enjoy the sights around you and not be so anxious and focused on the next 5 to 10 to 15 meters right in front of you. This is why retirement guardrails are so important. Most of the time, we're not going to hit the retirement guardrails that we're creating. Most of the time, we're going to be somewhere in between. But just the fact that you have those guardrails in place is going to make your retirement that much more enjoyable, less anxiety-ridden, less stressful, and you're actually going to be able to enjoy your retirement with those guardrails in place. So what are retirement guardrails? Well, there's many different types of guardrails, but the one we're going to talk about today is retirement spending guardrails. So the first retirement spending guardrail is your lower retirement spending guardrail. This is the amount of money that you can safely spend in retirement without having to worry about it running out of money in the future. This is regardless of investment returns or inflation rates that you might experience throughout retirement. This is your safe level of retirement spending. There is no point in spending less than that lower guardrail because it's not adding any value to your retirement plan. It's not providing any additional safety. If anything, it's limiting the amount that you could spend in retirement. We've seen clients that don't have a lower guardrail for retirement spending, and they are drastically underspending how much they could be spending in retirement simply because they don't know that they're spending too little and they're adding too much safety to their plan. So that lower retirement spending guardrail is to help protect you from being too cautious in retirement. Now, your upper retirement spending guardrail, that's how much you can spend in retirement when things are going well. So the lower guardrail was when you had poor investment returns or high inflation rates, but the upper guardrail is when investment returns are good, inflation rates are reasonable. That upper guardrail represents the max amount of spending that your plan can support. And it gives you a good upper bound for retirement spending. There is at some point too much spending within a retirement plan that will virtually guarantee that you will run out of money in the future. So this upper guardrail prevents us from reaching that point. So it's a good upper amount for retirement spending, a good max retirement spending, where we know that if we have some good investment returns, maybe above average investment returns, below average inflation rates, we can safely spend that amount of money in retirement and still not have to worry about running out in the future. Now, everywhere in between your upper and lower guardrail is safe. This is the big advantage of having guardrails within your retirement plan, is that you know that if you're somewhere in between that range, you don't have to worry. You could spend a little bit more if you're trending towards that upper guardrail, maybe spend a little bit less if you're trending to the lower guardrail. So you can adjust that, but as long as you're in between those two bounds, you can feel confident about your retirement plan. So let's create some retirement guardrails for this retirement plan. I'm going to show you two examples, one with a pension, one without. I want to show you that because it's going to affect the guardrails that we're going to create. That is one of the factors that we're going to talk about at the end of the video that will impact your retirement guardrails. So in this example, we've got a couple. They want to spend $76,000 a year, $77,000 a year in early retirement. They want to spend $63,000, $64,000 a year in late retirement. And right now their success rate is 82%, which is quite good, but we want to have a little bit more success for their lower retirement spending guardrail. So what this is doing is it's testing the drawdown plan, the retirement drawdown plan over 120 plus years of historical investment returns, stock returns, bond returns, and inflation rates. So here we've got our net worth, but as we can see, there's a chance of running out of money here in their mid to late 80s. And that's by spending $77,000 a year and then $64,000 a year. So we want to create a lower retirement spending guardrail that has a higher success rate. And to do that, we're just going to use the AI strategies down here. And already we can see that if they lower their spending, their success rate will go up to 90 or 100%. So this will be a very good lower retirement spending guardrail because any less spending than that doesn't do anything to impact their success rate. They're already at 100%. So let's enable this strategy. We're going to recalculate here. And now we're going to see that this is a very good lower retirement spending guardrail. There's really no reason to spend less than this amount. They're spending $71,000 a year in early retirement, $58,000 a year in late retirement, and on average, their net worth is going to be quite high, but what we're really worried about is those poor periods of investment returns or high inflation rates. So this is a perfect lower guardrail for retirement spending. Spending any less than this is not helpful whatsoever. So this is a great lower spending guardrail. Now let's take out that strategy here. Let's recalculate, get back to the original. So this is sort of the medium case, 82% success rate, bit of risk in late retirement, but we know that spending $6,000 less will give them a 100% success rate. So now we want to have an upper spending guardrail. We're going to re-rank here based on lifetime spending. And now we can see that their success rate will drop depending on how much spending they add to the plan. So if they add $3,000 a year, they're at 74% success rate, down from 82. If they add $6,000 a year, now it's 64. Adding $12,000 a year is probably the limit. Now we're getting into a 50-50 shot of running out of money later in retirement. So if we enable this strategy and we recalculate, now we'll see that there's a much higher chance of running out of money if they have some poor investment returns. So this upper guardrail is really if we have some above average investment returns, below average inflation rates. In that case, we can safely spend this upper amount of money, which is about $89,000 a year in early retirement and $76,000 a year in late retirement. So quite a different versus the lower retirement spending guardrail. We had $6,000 less, now we've got $12,000 more. So this gives us a good upper and lower bound for retirement spending. They might even tap into home equity here a little bit late in retirement, but we're not particularly worried about that because they've got quite a bit of equity in their home. So this gives us a good upper and lower bound with a pension, but now let's look at a scenario without a pension, but the equivalent in registered assets. Okay, so now we're in the same situation. We've got the same spending, base spending, so we've got $77,000 a year early retirement, we've got $64,000 a year late retirement, but without the pension, we can see that their success rate's also already a little bit lower. And the reason is the pension does add a little bit of security to their plan. So it's an inflation adjusted pension. It does add a little bit of security. So now if we want to create a lower retirement spending guardrail, we can see that we probably need to go a little bit lower here. So in the one with a pension, we could spend $6,000 less and be at a 100% success rate. Here we have to spend $12,000 or less in retirement to get the same 100% success rate. So you can see how the pension changes that lower retirement spending guardrail, makes it a little bit lower because there's more variability within the plan. So if we enable that, now we'll see that we have the same 100% success rate. So that's a great lower spending guardrail. You can see that they're saving a lot on average in late retirement, but in those worst case scenarios, this will help them prevent them from running out of money in late retirement. So $65,000 a year in early retirement spending and $52,000 a year in late retirement spending. That's their lower retirement spending guardrail. But now let's look at their upper spending guardrail. So let's take out that change to spending. Let's recalculate here. And now we're back at our average success rate, average plan 77%. Now let's re-rank by spending and let's look at an upper spending guardrail. Now here, $12,000 in spending actually has a higher success rate. So their upper spending guardrail could actually be a little bit higher because they have that investment portfolio. And at the end of the video, we'll talk about those different factors because the pension is one, but also the size of the investment portfolio is another. So because this couple has a larger investment portfolio, they can, when the investment returns are good, they can spend more than somebody with a pension. So if we want to enable this one with 51%, it's the same upper guardrail we had before, but now we're going to see that the success rate is a little bit better. So net worth, they've got a little bit more towards the end of the plan, and the success rate is a little bit better than it was before, and it's the same level of spending. So $89,000 a year in early retirement and $76,000 a year in late retirement. So now we've got our two spending guardrails in two different situations, and you can see how that might change depending on your particular retirement plan. If you're in Canada, you can use the advice platform to create your own retirement plan, and you can use the AI strategies, just what I was doing, to create your own retirement spending guardrails. Now, before we end, I want to highlight the 4 factors that will impact your retirement spending guardrails. And number 1 is definitely guaranteed income sources in retirement. So pensions, government pensions, government benefits, any sort of guaranteed retirement income will certainly impact the size of your retirement spending guardrails. Number 2 is if any of that income is inflation adjusted. So if you have inflation adjusted retirement income, that's going to help you have better retirement spending guardrails than if there is no inflation adjustment on that income. Now, the third factor is the size of your investment portfolio. So as we saw in the examples, the larger the portfolio, the higher your upper spending guardrail can be, but also the lower your lower spending guardrail will also likely need to be. So with a larger investment portfolio, you can expect that your guardrails are going to be wider, further apart, because the investment portfolio is going to vary greater from year to year with a larger size. And the fourth factor is going to be your personal risk tolerance. So you might be aiming for a lower or higher success rate when you're creating those retirement spending guardrails, simply because of how cautious or aggressive you want to be with your retirement plan. So your personal risk profile is going to impact the size of those retirement guardrails and how far they are apart. Thank you so much for watching. I would love it if you like and subscribe. We're going to come out with a new video on a regular basis. Thanks for watching.